There don't seem to be many young people protesting against the Iraq War. Mostly the protesters are middle-aged and even senior citizens. A lot of the protesters protested against the Vietnam War, and it's pretty common to find them lamenting that kids these days aren't as socially aware and active as they were when they were younger. Sure, it would be nice to have more young people trying to stop the war. It would be nice to have more people of any age. But the scarcity of young protesters isn't anything to be upset about. In fact, it's a very encouraging sign. Young people, especially college kids, led many of the protests against the Vietnam War. As they grew older, most of them fell away from activism and settled into apolitical lives. I think a lot of them looked at protesting as something that kids do, and they felt they had grown out of it. Today, young people see that protesting is something that grown-ups do. So as kids grow older, they may become more politically active because that is what they will think adults do. Today's protesters are creating a positive image that young people will be drawn to as they get a little older. The protesters dress nicely and are polite and orderly. They don't break windows or swear or burn things. They are articulate. Fortunately, no one has been hitting them over the head with clubs or sicking dogs on them. When they get arrested, they sue the police and win. Most importantly, protesters these days are effective. They get interviews with congressmen when they want to. They get permits to hold rallies and marches. They get resolutions passed in city and state legislatures. They influence elections, and they are well on the way to ending the war. The public figures who are for the war, by comparison, keep getting caught lying, stealing, abusing drugs, cheating on their spouses, using racial slurs, and sometimes they are sent to jail. The peace protesters are doing a much better job of creating an image that young people will want to associate with as they mature into adulthood. Some young people are actively working to stop the war. They aren't doing it to protect themselves and their friends from being drafted, which was a major motivation during the Vietnam War. And they aren't doing it to rebel against the older generation, because they can see that the older generation is leading the anti-war movement. The kids who are helping to stop the war today are doing it for exactly the same reasons the older folks are. They don't like war in general, and they don't like this war in particular. Their motives are principled and genuine and selfless. There may not be as many young protesters today as there were a few decades ago, but those that are there for the right reasons. It won't be long before they advance from marching in street protests to serving in city councils and legislatures and Congress. And pretty soon the older protesters who are now complaining about the youngsters will be bragging that they taught the youngsters everything they know.